The retreat center smelled like cedar and other people's grief. I noticed that the moment I pulled my suitcase through the front door. That particular heaviness in the air? That comes from a building that has held a lot of crying. The woman at the check-in desk had kind eyes and a laminated name tag, and she handed me a welcome packet with a schedule and a list of guidelines and a small card that said "You're not alone" in a font that was trying very hard. I put the card in my pocket and found my room, and sat on the edge of the bed for a while without unpacking. My sister Renee had been dead for 14 months. I was here because my therapist had suggested it, my mother had seconded it, and I had run out of convincing reasons to say no. There were 8 of us. We learned this at the first group session, sitting in a circle of chairs in a room with large windows that looked out at bare trees. The facilitator, a soft-spoken woman named Carol, asked us to share only what we wanted to share. Who we lost. How long ago. Nothing more unless we chose. I said, my sister, 14 months. The man across the circle said, my son, 11 months. His name was James. He said it quietly and looked at his hands. When he said it in something about the particular way, he held himself very still, like stillness was something he had practiced, made me think. He hadn't said those words out loud in a while. After the session there was dinner, which I ate mostly in silence. And then there was free time, which I did not know what to do with. And so I put on my coat and went out to the back porch with an unlit cigarette I had bought at a gas station 2 weeks ago and never smoked. I didn't smoke, I just sometimes needed something to do with my hands. The porch light was on and James was already there. He looked at the cigarette, then at me. He didn't say anything. I don't actually smoke, I said. I know, he said. You've been holding it the same way for 10 minutes. I hadn't realized he'd been watching. I sat down on the steps beside him, not close, appropriate distance, stranger distance, and held the cigarette and looked out at the dark tree line. 11 months, I said.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. A pause.
14 months. Yeah. We sat in silence for a while. It was a surprisingly easy silence for 2 people who had met 4 hours ago. Maybe that was the thing about grief. It leveled the small talk requirement. We had both already survived the worst thing. What was there to be awkward about? His name was Noah, James said. Not looking at me, looking at the trees. He was 7. I didn't say anything because there was nothing to say. I just sat with it the way you sit with something that has weight. After a moment, his shoulder pressed against mine. I don't think he meant to. The steps were narrow, and he was tall, and it just happened. That slight contact, and neither of us moved away from it. Renee, I said. She was 34. Aneurysm. No warning. God, he said quietly.
Yeah.
We stayed on the steps until the cold got serious. When I finally stood up, he stood too. And for a moment we were very close in the small space of the porch. And he looked at me with an expression I recognized because I saw it in mirrors. The particular exhaustion of someone who has been holding it together in public for almost a year. Good night, I said. Good night. He paused. Mara. He'd remembered my name from the circle. I don't know why that undid me a little. I went inside and did not cry until I was in my room with the door closed. The second day had sessions in the morning and afternoon with free time between. I went to both. James went to both. We did not sit next to each other, but I was aware of where he was in the room in the way. You become aware of certain people without deciding to. The afternoon session was a body-based exercise. Carol asked us to find a partner, and I looked up, and James was already looking at me. We sat facing each other on the floor, and Carol guided us through a breathing exercise, and then she asked us to place one hand on our own chest and one hand on our partner's back. His hand on my back was warm through my sweater. I felt it like a current. Feel their breath, Carol said. You don't have to match it. Just feel it. I felt his breath, the rise and fall. Slow and careful, like everything about him. My own breath adjusted without me telling it to. His did the same. We sat like that for a long time. His hand on my back, my hand on his. The room very quiet. When Carol told us to slowly release, neither of us moved for a moment. "Thank you," he said, formal, like he was thanking me for something larger than a breathing exercise. "Yeah," I said. My voice came out soft. That night on the porch, he sat closer. Not dramatically, just close enough that when I held my unlit cigarette and looked at the trees, his arm was against mine from shoulder to elbow, and it was deliberate this time. I thought we both knew it was deliberate. "Do you have people?" he asked. "At home, who'd check on you?" "My mom, my friends try, but they don't," I stopped. They didn't know Renee the way I did. So when they say they understand, it's not kind, not quite right, he said.
Yeah.
"My wife left 8 months ago," he said. "After Noah, he exhaled. Some things break and the pieces don't fit back the same way." I turned to look at him. He was looking at the trees, jaw tight. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. I think we were all ready." He shook his head. Noah held a lot of things together. When he was gone, there was nothing holding the frame. I thought about Renee, how she was the person I called first. Always, for everything. How there was a version of me that only existed in conversation with her. How that version had nowhere to go now. "I know what you mean," I said, "about the frame." He turned then and looked at me, and I let him look, which was not something I usually did. I usually deflected, smiled, changed the subject, made it manageable. I sat there on the cold steps and let James look at me in the dark and felt something loosen in my chest. His hand found mine between us. Not romantic, not yet, just his hand covering mine on the step, warm and present. "She sounds like she was something," he said. "She was everything," I said, and my voice broke on it. Finally, after 14 months, broke open on the back porch of a grief retreat in the dark. And I pressed my free hand to my mouth, and James didn't say a word, just moved closer and put his arm around me, and I leaned into him and cried in a way. I hadn't let myself cry in front of another person since the hospital. He held me without asking if I needed it. That was the thing. He just held me, his arm firm around my shoulders, his chin near my temple. And he didn't say it's okay, or she's in a better place, or any of the things people said. He just stayed. When I finally pulled back, embarrassed, reaching for composure, he kept his arm where it was. "Don't," he said quietly. I stilled. "You don't have to fix your face," he said. "Not out here." I looked at him. His eyes were wet too, I realized. Had been for a while. I leaned back against his shoulder and we sat like that until the cold was impossible. And the porch light flickered and somewhere inside someone laughed at. Something, and the sound of it, ordinary, alive, drifted out to us like a reminder. The last morning, the parking lot filled, slowly, with people loading cars and exchanging numbers with the careful hope of people who have shared something real and aren't sure how it translates back to ordinary life. James found me by my car. He had his bag over one shoulder and his hands in his pockets, and he looked, I thought, marginally more like a person who might be okay eventually. I hoped I looked the same to him. "I have your number," he said, "from the contact sheet." "I know. I'm going to use it." "I know that too," I said. He smiled then, for the first time since I'd met him, a real one. Slow and a little rusty, like something that hadn't been used in almost a year. It rearranged his whole face. I stored it somewhere careful. He hugged me in the parking lot. Proper, full, both arms. The kind of hug that means something. I hugged him back and held on a moment longer than goodbye and felt him do the same. When we stepped back, he looked at me steadily. "Different world out there," he said. "Yeah, I picked up my keys. Call me when it gets loud." "You too." I drove the first hour without the radio, just the road and the trees and the particular feeling of carrying something new alongside the something heavy that had brought me there in the first place. My phone buzzed outside the city. A text from a number I'd already saved. "Made an out. It's loud already." I smiled at the road, typed back one-handed at a red light, "Me too. I've got you." I put the phone down and drove home toward whatever came next.